Mobile hunters, our buddies over at Tethered, are always innovating to keep us more mobile and in the game when it counts. From the Tethered One Sticks, the Fast Pack, to the Ultra Lock Saddle, Tethered is always designing to increase comfort and utility while reducing bulk, weight, and fiddle factor of mobile hunting gear. And now, they've outdone themselves yet again by creating the carbon fiber forged Predator CFX platform, the latest fully featured mobile saddle platform that raises the bar for what's possible in mobile hunting gear. Whether you're new to saddle hunting or an old tree climbing veteran, go to tetherednation.com for all your saddle hunting gear. Welcome to the Truth from a Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 376. Today I'm joined by my buddy, the UP Bowhunter, Todd Freeman, talking about killing bucks with wet feet and building a zero arrow. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine on this, whatever day this is. I think it's the 21st of February. Man, it's crazy that we're already over halfway through February. It's almost prime time for shed season. I hope you had a great Valentine's Day if you celebrate said holiday. My wife and I have been together for so many years now. Valentine's Day is more just a reason for us to cook a good dinner. We always just kind of have like the three of us, me, the wife, the kiddo, exchange cards, have a dinner that we always like. We usually just do like a steak of some sort, scallops, and then my daughter always likes to get the heart-shaped pasta or ravioli filled with something. I don't know what it was. So that's what we did. Nothing too awful crazy. Was planning to actually start doing some postseason work. A little shed hunting, which for me, most of the time it's shed hunting in vain. But nevertheless, was actually going to get ready to get out to the North Piece this weekend and pull cameras because I have yet to check any of the camera. I checked one camera up there in October. I think it would have been I think it was actually opening weekend. I think it was the first week of October that I checked the camera because I don't think I checked it the second time I hunted it. And I hadn't been back since because I ended up killing a deer, locally, then was, out of state and so forth. So really haven't checked any cameras. And a buddy of mine, went and did a round. There was one camera that I thought might get stolen because it was in a good spot, but it was also in a spot that, when I hung it, I was like, man, this one might get legs. Right. And I locked it up at the kind of the way I locked it up and stuff was, it was more of a visual deterrent than it was like a physical deterrent. I guess we'll put it that way because anyone who really wanted to take it probably can, with minimal effort. But I thought it was a killer spot, huge scrape. And so my buddy went and checked some of his cameras or pulled some of his. I guess it was maybe 2 weeks ago now, and lo and behold, camera's still holding strong. Was still there. He didn't have a card reader though, so he couldn't check it for me to see what was on it. So my plan was to try this past weekend to get up there and check it, but we got a fair amount of snow last weekend, and then another, nice, probably like another fresh 4 inches. I think it was on Friday, or maybe it was it was on Saturday that we got that. And so, my plan, I was off on Monday for a national, bank holiday type of deal, and I was going to make a run up there and just check some cameras, do some shed hunting. And the snow kind of put the kibosh on that. I thought I was going to get lucky and get up there early this year because we haven't had a ton of snow necessarily and not a bunch up there to speak of to this point. But of course, the time that I have off to go up there and do it, we get a nice blast of snow that kind of keeps me out of there. But what really kind of got me pumped was that same buddy that walked by my camera and gave me a heads up that it was still there. He was checking some cameras in and around an area where I had scouted and I had hunted, this past year on 2 different hunts. And there's a real good buck that's in that area that he knew of, and through him I knew of that was there. And he ended up getting him on camera again, and he is a hammer, a toad. I will venture to say, and I'm not elaborating at all, it is it is considerably a larger deer than the one that I shot in Kansas. So just to kind of put some framework around the caliber of deer that this is, which is awesome. So I'm chomping at the bit to get up there, check some cameras, and see if we can't get some more intel. Maybe that deer's on one of those cameras, and maybe we'll start to put some of those collectively start to put some of those puzzle pieces together. But since we had kind of the not snowed in, but the snow kind of put the kibosh on what I was planning to do for the weekend, I took advantage of having some free time and went down to my buddy Todd's place. Todd lives about an hour from me in Jersey. I had him on, a while ago, probably a year or so ago, and chopped it up. But Todd's been a traditional bow hunter for a bunch of years. I mean, he's been bow hunting for, I want to say, close to 45 years, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been using traditional equipment for the past, I think he said 9. It was 9 or 10. He mentions it in the podcast. And the biggest challenge for me in starting to make the switch over to shooting a traditional bow was, it's all kind of brand new to me. How just to kind of be honest with my compound, the bow that I shoot or the bows that I've shot, I've always let someone else do the work on it, set it up, get it tuned and dialed in and stuff like that. And then most of the time I would build my own arrows, I'd get them, cut them, and, fletch them and do all that stuff. But, at that point you're really kind of tuning the bow, and I don't have any of the equipment at my house to do that. So I always let someone else kind of handle that. My buddy AJ out at Bob and AJ has always kind of took care of me in that regard. And it's a whole different ball game whenever you shoot a traditional bow, because you're tuning the arrow, and it's a little bit of a process. It was a much shorter process than I had originally thought. We spent some time in Todd's garage kind of building my zero arrow, and it went a lot quicker than I thought it would. It wasn't as, I thought it was going to be a painstaking kind of process, but it wasn't. And it was really enjoyable, especially to do it with a buddy. And Todd's been doing this for a long time, and he's very particular about things. Like, his background as a mechanic and fixing things and making things right. So he's very kind of particular about things, which is awesome for me because, I got a great mentor, not just in the building of an arrow and things of that nature, but, Todd is a really good archer, and is just, believes in the traditional way since he kind of made that transition. So we talked a little bit about the process of building the arrow. It was just great to spend the day hanging out with him. And then we got to kind of chop it up about his hunting season. And then we were in his basement. So a bunch of his mounts are in the basement. So we kind of went through the different deer and got a little tidbit about, each one of those, because he's got some hammers in there. And he just happens to like bucks that have wet feet. And so I'll let him kind of explain that as we get into the show. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's episode. As always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. Today we are on site at my buddy, you know him, you love him, Mr. Todd Freeman, the Youper, the UP Bowhunter. What's going on, man?
Not much, dude. We're having a pretty good afternoon today, aren't we? After we finally got rolling, after I got stuck at work for a little while there.
Dude, you gotta make that cheddar though. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then we also got Archie Bunker here trying to cause some chaos. Like he wanted nothing to do with this setup.
I know, but I told you this is his bed. This is actually where he lays. So. Where
he lays, and and then I put my computer on it, and he's like, in all the podcast stuff, he's like, dude, what's up?
Yeah,
you're spreading all your human crap all over.
I will take ownership of this now.
Yeah, I could actually probably slide it over if
he's fine.
If he wants to lay on it. Yeah. I like the fact that you named your chocolate lab Archie after Archie Bunker.
Yeah, well, growing up, that was a show we watched on TV a lot.
Me too. That shows how old we are, dude.
Yeah, it just happened to be so. When we got Archie, we got him as a puppy, we started thinking about getting a dog, and then we went and picked him out. We picked a name, and the name was Archie that everybody kind of came up with.
Right.
And then my wife's grandmother's maiden name is Bunker.
Are you serious?
No. So that's why I was like, all right, well, it's Archie Bunker then.
Right.
That's
amazing, dude. The fact that that her mother's, was it her last name or her maiden name?
Her maiden name.
Her maiden name?
Yeah. Oh.
He can lay there.
You sure?
Yeah, he'll be fine.
All right.
I'm trying to move some stuff around to give him some free reign.
Cool. I got both ears are working right now too.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, we'll be good. Actually,
Dude, I'm sorry about this.
No, you're good. I probably should have did this at the beginning and just realized like, hey, this is the dog's spot. But yeah, now we're all good.
All right.
So you named him Archie Bunker.
Mm-hmm.
For those that are listening that maybe don't know, I'll say it this way. It was the show's name was All in the Family, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was not the most PC show in the world.
No.
We'll put it this way: if it was made today, it would be canceled in the first episode.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be like the new Roseanne Barr show. Right?
It would be. It totally would be.
Yeah.
But if you've never watched it, it was one of those shows that I watched with my mom's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Like religiously.
Yeah.
That was his show. And he was kind of like an Archie Bunker.
Was he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a little grunchy and groany and yeah.
He was always just like I mean he was a pleasant guy, but just I don't know if it was that era of dudes, you know?
Yeah.
He was just always kind of
Well, I think when you think about those guys it's from that generation, I mean they lived in a tunnel.
Yeah.
They didn't have the internet. You know what I mean? Like they had the people that they worked with. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there was probably some characters of all different races and everything else.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That were there. And man, maybe some of those races hit some stereotypes that were out there about that. You know what I mean? And they just said all of them are like that. You know, all these kind of people are like that. And all these, you know what I mean?
And
like,
it didn't even matter. It would be as simple as like I'm trying to think of like from my grandparents, but like it might be just someone with long hair.
Right,
and
exactly.
that was one of the characters on All in the Family. Meathead.
Yeah.
He was a long hair like 70s hippie.
Yep.
You know, or disco guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think they were hippies. Him and his Archie's daughter. Was a hippie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Kind of.
yeah. But now we're totally off the beaten path. Like if talking about Archie Bunker versus so the moral of the story is the dog's name is Archie after Archie Bunker.
That's it.
Yeah. Nice. But what Todd was alluding to earlier, we had a pretty good day, you know, as folks out there listening, and we'll talk about a bunch of different stuff today, bow hunting. We're going to get into Todd's season and stuff like that. But you know, if anyone's been following this, especially for the past couple of weeks, you know, I've been playing around with traditional archery, you know, kind of making that transition, making plans to make that transition. And, you know, one of the hardest things is because there's some nuance, and I don't know much about traditional bow hunting, just from what I picked up from friends and stuff like that. But Todd's been using, or has been using trad equipment for, like you said, this will be year 9 or 10 this fall?
I think it's 9.
9. Yeah. And you are the one, whenever I started, like, I think it was 3 years ago, whenever I kind of mentioned I was interested in dabbling, you know, you were like, dude, do it. You're like, you're going to love it. And so then last year in the summer, you text me and you're like, hey, I just bought an arrow building kit for you. It's here. Whenever you're ready, you just show up whenever you're ready to make
I got a bow. I got everything for you. Yep.
So, you know, knowing that this was, you know, the thing that was on my agenda to kind of make happen, you know, I pinged Todd, or I hit him up and just said, hey, I think I'm ready to make the switch. You know,
I've been listening though.
Yeah.
I knew you were.
Yeah.
I've been listening.
And like a good friend, you know, he was just kind of waiting for me to decide that I was ready to kind of jump in. And, you know, he basically just said, hey, pick a weekend you want to come down on a Saturday.
Yep.
We'll build you an arrow. People who listen to this know that I had a couple recurves at the house, but Todd had a longbow that he wasn't using, that he had at his place. And he basically said, hey, come down, shoot your bow, shoot the longbow, you know, knowing that you want to kind of get a longbow, just check this one out, see which one you like to shoot. And then if you like the longbow, like take that and use it for as long as you would like, and we'll make an arrow. Yeah. And so that's what we did today.
Yeah.
So we hung out. So how did I do? Like, so let me ask you this. Before I got here, right, what did you think would happen? And then how did I do?
Well, I think it went about same as what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I've been telling you for about a year now, you know, you got to be, you have to, it doesn't matter what arrow you use, even if you use one with blazer veins on it.
Right.
Grab your grandpa's bow and go out there and start working on your form.
Yep.
And I think you probably pretty much did that. I mean, the first couple arrows went a little bit funny. I gave you an arrow to shoot and said, I think this will be a good arrow for you. Let's start here. And we talked about like arrow like broadhead weights and, you know, what's standard, what's a little bit heavier, and what, if you had to pick a weight right now, I would go with this weight because every every broadhead company makes one in this weight.
Right.
If we go a little bit higher, it might be, you know, your selection might be a little bit less, you know, or whatever. So we went with that, and then, man, dude, I put an arrow together for you. You took a shot, and it was a little bit off. And I said, okay, they'll just keep focusing in the center. Or actually, I think you shot a couple of times, and you started finding the center. And then I said, okay, now I really want you to look at that X in there. And you started doing it, and dude, you were hitting axes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the arrow wasn't coming out of the bow exactly. We had no idea. We were just working on your form.
We just started with a full length arrow.
Yeah, 34-inch. Vintage, Black Eagle vintage. Yep.
And just said, start flinging this.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I mean, I'll say this, man, you made it really comfortable, right? Because I told you before I even came down that and we've known each other for a little while. So I wasn't nervous to come down and shoot in front of you and hang out and, you know, and do that.
Yeah.
I was nervous about whether or not, because I really want to hunt with a traditional bow, you know? And so,
well, you better.
Right. I know. My nervousness was more around, am I going to start trying to do this? And is it just going to be, am I going to be so bad at it and so shitty at it that I'm going to be disappointed, you know, and then maybe come to the realization that, like, hey, maybe this isn't for me, you know? Yeah. That's what I was nervous about. But you made it really comfortable. And just like the tips that you were giving me, how to feel things, you know, you weren't overly coaching, where you weren't like, hey, put your fingers this way or shoot this way because I shoot this way. You were like, just grab the bow how you would normally grab the bow and shoot. And to your point, like, you gave me some advice, like, hey, just start, like you said, go in the backyard, use the bow that your dad gave you to have around the house. Just start shooting it. See what feels good, you know? And that was kind of how I was able to decide, like, do I want to shoot 3 under? Do I want to shoot split finger or whatever the case is?
Yeah.
And when I picked up that longbow, though, dude, that thing is just so smooth. Like, it just feels...
I knew you'd like it.
Way better than a recurve, in my opinion.
Yep. I knew you'd like it. I know John White shot that bow up at ETAR.
Oh, he did?
This year, yep.
Nice.
He shot that bow, so.
Nice. Nice. So we basically then, once we did that, and I kind of was able to replicate my shot as best I can for being someone who's new over and over again. And it was really cool because you could kind of see whenever my shot would go off. Like, you could tell... even just from hearing it hit the target and stuff, like whether or not it was a good release and stuff like that, which helped me because I would think it was good, right? And then you would say, you know, you're not even watching me, you're just watching the arrow, and you're like, yeah, based on how the arrow landed, and it looks like it was a good release, right? And then I could start to put together, like, oh, that felt good.
Yeah.
And the arrow landed where I wanted it to land.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so I was able to start to tell, like, you know, where my body needed to be. Like, what overdrawn feels like. Because, like you were saying, like, earlier, like, with a compound, it's real hard to overdraw. Like, you can't overdraw. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, unless your draw length is incorrect, right? But if your draw length is set on your bow correctly, like, you can't overdraw the bow.
Right.
But with a traditional bow, you can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You can draw until...
cows come home.
Yep, the string comes off the limbs. You know what I mean? You can just keep drawing and drawing and drawing. Yep.
Yeah. And so it was helpful, you know, you teaching me what a shot looks like when it's overdrawn, like with the arrow. And it's just all those, like, how long did it take you to pick that stuff up? Because I feel fortunate that I got a buddy that is actually someone who lives close enough that I can drive to get this, right? As opposed to just, man, it would take me forever to figure this stuff out watching videos or, you know, trying to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, well, so to be honest with you, like 9 years ago, whatever it was, when I decided I was going to do it, I had no one. You know what I mean? I had to kind of like draw back on when I was a kid and a little fiberglass red bow, you know, me and my brother had, you know, and, you know, kind of draw back on that a little bit. I had a recurve that was around the house that I would get up, take and shoot a little bit here and there, and then I bought one for my boys. So they had a fiberglass bow to go out and shoot rabbits with and stuff like that. And whatever, but I never really did a whole lot with it. And then when I decided to do it, I started to have to kind of like go back in time about that. But I didn't know anything about tuning arrows or nothing like that. So, dude, for me, really, I got to give a lot of credit to where most newer traditional guys have to go. They got to go to the push and you watch the push video it's a 2-hour video. There's like I think today there's probably about 3.7 million views on that. With Matt Zernzak and Tim Nebel. Those Timmy, it was a guest. I consider him a friend of mine now. He was the guy recording it and producing it, and Matt Zernzak was the guy that was in front of the camera.
Right.
And they were the push, and they started from that video, and they've made a really, really big following for newer, younger people. But the way they explained it, the way Matt explained things on the arc of the arrow and how to map it out and all those kind of things, man, that is something that. And he was a guest. Matt was a guest on your podcast, in the last year.
Yeah. We had him. I had him on last year, and it was because that was really when I started kind of getting more serious about wanting to make. I probably would have started making the change last year had I not had the shoulder issue and stuff like that, because that kind of just threw a whole monkey wrench into things. I couldn't shoot at all for a while, like no matter what the equipment was. But yeah, he does a really good job of explaining things.
He does,
and he has a way, and he's just so knowledgeable.
Well, another thing about Matt too is that he is if you watch a Lancaster Classic every year for like the last 5 years, I think 4 years, something like that, because of the notoriety of the push, that one video that started the whole thing for them. He is the color guy for the bare bow finals.
Right. Okay.
On the YouTube for the Lancaster Classic thing, and the bare bow. Even with all the Olympic recurve finals and the compound finals and all that stuff, the bare bow is the one that the place is rocking for. Nice. You know what I mean? Like that's crazy in this world today with all the bows that are out there and all the different, all the different styles of archery. That the bare bow is the one that has. At the Lancaster Classic is the most, the most coveted, the one people go wild. They go crazy, they go bonkers about it. Like I was telling you, I was like, when we were out in the backyard after we built your arrow, and then we built you one, we got you one with fletchings on it, and you went out and started shooting it with a little bit of distance. You let down once, and I was like, the fans go wild because in the bare bow competition, when you watch it on YouTube, like if they're all the people that are in the auditorium that are watching are all shooters.
Right.
All the fans that are watching are shooters, and they understand how important it is when you draw back and you're on a timer. You know what I mean? You draw back and everything isn't right, and you're in a competition. Most people are letting go of that arrow. They're going to let her fly no matter if. Okay, well, I got to pull through that even though my hand wasn't right. You know what I mean? When a man or a woman on the bare bow competition in the finals, when they let down, the whole place goes crazy. It erupts. It's like, well, it's because that's the hardest thing in archery is to let down a shot and not just say, screw it. I'm pulling through and I'm going and I'm going to shoot.
Because you've done the work, right? It's like you've locked in, like you've pulled back, right? And it's the same thing like when you're on a deer, right? Where you did all the work to get there. The last thing you want to do is watch it walk away and let the shot down or whatever. But Greg beat this into me. I say beat this into me, but we're all Todd and I are mutual friends with Greg, our buddy Greg Litzinger, and I make no bones about he helped me rebuild my shot years ago, with a compound, and that was the one thing that he was adamant about. Like when we would shoot together, would be if it doesn't feel right, just let the bow down. Don't finish the shot just because you drew. Yeah. Like if it's not right, it doesn't feel good. Like even if everything you've done is right. And you went through your whole shot sequence, and it just doesn't feel right. Yeah, just let it down. And that
dude,
was
if you have to believe in. I am an archer just because I shoot my bow every day.
Right.
I'm a bow hunter.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not like any sort of good shot at all, but I shoot my bow every single day. The hardest thing in archery is to let the bow down when things aren't going right. Yeah. When something in your shot process went wrong. To let the bow down, it's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Most people, even if you're in an indoor league or something like that, you're not letting down. You're pulling through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The easiest thing is actually to hit the necks. Right. You know what I mean? The hardest thing is to let the bow down and start over again because you didn't have everything lined up to make an X shot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the other thing too is in kind of making what's making, I think, it easier for me. And look, I'm not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination. I'm at the infancy of this journey, right?
Yeah.
I won't say easier. What's making it more comfortable for me, I think, is one, having you as a resource,
right,
that's willing to share with me. Two, we're pretty close the same size.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like our setups aren't very far off. You know what I mean? And so just in full disclosure, for people that are listening, when we got together today and we were talking about getting the arrow set up and stuff like that, I made a lot of choices about the arrow that Todd was giving me because I was staying close to the setup that he uses. That way, if I have any issues with things, I can talk to him and he'll have a pretty good idea of like what's going on or what's going wrong or how I can fix it, because I'm shooting the same arrows. I'm shooting the same point weight. I'm shooting the same insert weight. We're not the same length, but we're pretty close to the same length. We're shooting pretty close to the same draw length. We're shooting pretty close to the same draw weight. It's like, and so all those things, he's got years on me. He shoots 300. I'm shooting split finger. Our bodies are a little bit different, right? And like how we anchor and stuff like that. But by and large, like he has a pretty good idea without even watching me shoot. If I give him a sense of like what I'm consistently have go wrong, he can help me kind of diagnose like what the problem might be or give me some suggestions to kind of fast track me to a correction point.
And dude, to be honest with you, like we went over what happens from a stiff arrow, what happens for a weak arrow, those kind of things. That's once you understand that part and somebody explained it to you,
right?
You're never going to need anybody to explain that to you anymore.
Hey, don't give me any more credit than I deserve, man. I'm a little remedial.
There's only a few things that you can do wrong, and then overthinking is like I told you, you're going to go home. We're going to build your control arrow or your zero arrow or your bear shaft, whatever term people want to use. You're going to use that, and you're going to go build some arrows to it, and man, things are going to be great for a while, and then all of a sudden you're going to start overthinking it.
Yep.
Or you're going to have like I told you, I said, dude, it's the craziest thing. Like you can literally go in your backyard at 20 yards when your mind is right and you understand the arc of your arrows and your arrow weight and your bow and your arrow combination, and you know the arc of it and your mind knows it, and you're just picking your spot and you're pulling through and you're doing everything right, and you're going to send 3 arrows down and all of them are going to be in the 10 ring. You're going to go pick the arrows and you're going to be like, holy shit, that was easy.
Right. I feel great.
Yeah, I'm a master of this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yep, I mastered that. Like, I just finished the internet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, all right, what else is there?
Nothing else to read. I just read it all.
Yeah. And you're going to go pick your 3 arrows and you're going to walk back to 20 yards where your bow's sitting and stand in the same exact, put your feet in the same exact spot, and they're going to be 3 feet apart.
Right.
All 3 arrows are going to be 3 feet apart, and you're going to be like, what just happened?
Right.
You know what I mean? That's traditional, shooting a traditional bow. That's just the way it is. Now, that one's probably pretty easy. You're like I just wasn't focusing or I wasn't doing something right. That's pretty easy.
Right.
But when you consistently get something crazy that's going left or whatever, you just got to go back to, okay, that's a stiff arrow. I'm not drawing. Something's collapsing. I'm not drawing. I'm not getting my full energy into the arrow, so it's coming out stiff. It's deflecting off the shelf,
right,
or off the
riser.
Yeah, off the riser. Yeah, and it's going left. You know what I mean? If I'm shooting to the right a lot, I'm overdrawing it. Somehow, for some reason, man, I feel strong today, and I'm overdrawing it. Like my arrows aren't spined for this.
Right.
You know what I mean? I got to get myself back into my. It's really that simple.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah. How long did it take you? Till you felt confident out to, let's say, like 20 yards, like to where you were like, yeah, I can make that shot without a warm up. And I ask this, honestly, because, was shooting in your garage as we were setting up my arrow, and that was like, I don't know what it was, like 7 yards or something like that. Right. Cause we were just trying to see the flight, or get like the spine right and build my zero arrow. And I started hitting some X's, you know what I mean, stuff like that, and felt pretty good. Release felt good, and then we had one fletched, and we were like, "Hey, let's go to the backyard." And now I was out back at like 10, and you were like, "Just find a spot." Same advice you gave me inside, like just focus on the place where you want the arrow to land. Because for people that are listening, I'm shooting instinctive. I don't like to aim like it. I don't like that approach to it. I want to shoot instinctively. And that was how my dad taught me when I first kind of learned how to shoot a recurve, was like shoot it like you're throwing a baseball.
I think that's a purest form of what we're
right.
what you're getting yourself into. I think it's the purest form.
And so, we go out there and, you have your 3D target that's out there and you're like, hey, pick a spot and just, try to hit it. And I shot and the first arrow, like hit the dirt, like in front of it. Right. And this is a target that's on the ground, hit the dirt in front of it. And then you said, you're like, hey, your brain's trying to like recalibrate. Like, okay, you were shooting like 5 to 7 yards. Now you're like 10 to 12, right? Like now you're finding your spot, but you're just like brain and hand, an arrow aren't connected yet, And then the very next shot, it's like I put it where I was trying to put it, and you were like, all right, your brain's like recalibrating.
Yep.
And so like my question is like, how long was it for you until, you could go pick up your bow right now and go step to 15 yards or 20 yards and put the arrow where you want it to be without having to go through that like brain recalibrating with one shot type of thing?
It doesn't take long. No. It really doesn't. So that's one of the good things about building that zero arrow or the control arrow is you just built your weight.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're changing weights of your arrows and changing arrows all the time, your mind has to relearn the arc of the weight of that arrow.
Right.
If you're changing bows all the time, your brain has to learn the arrow weight and the weight and the way that arrow, that bow shoots an arrow.
Right.
You have to teach it. But once it starts to learn it and you run through the ranges quite a few times, it's really automatic.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah. So drastic arrow changes are something we shouldn't really strive for all the time. We shouldn't be doing like in the traditional aspect. I mean, maybe some really, really good shooters that have really been doing it a long time or whatever, maybe they could have a hunting arrow and a tack arrow.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You shouldn't be doing that stuff in traditional. Right. You should be shooting the same arrow almost all the time. You know what I mean? Arrow weight, because your mind has learned the 563 degree grain arrow arc out of the bow that you shoot right now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if you go to 700 grains, now it's got to learn another arc.
Right.
It's got to relearn all that stuff. So
yeah,
it really doesn't take long. It really doesn't.
No.
It's just like when you're, and again, this is a very easy over thing. When a kid's learning to throw a ball,
right?
You know what I mean? In baseball, you know what I mean? It takes a little while to be able to get it from me to you,
right?
To hit you in the numbers right in the chest. You know what I mean? It takes a little while to do that, but it doesn't take long. And then all of a sudden your dad steps back 10 more feet and now you got to hit, and he says, hit me right in the chest.
Right.
Hit me right in the chest. It takes you a couple of throws. And after a while,
he could stand at different yardages anytime and I would hit him.
It's exactly the same. Your brain is going through the same exact process.
Right.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, it's just, and I mean, I saw it out there, like how quickly it translated, because then we stepped back just a few more steps, you know what I mean, and flinging arrows, and I was off, and then you were like, hit this arrow. He's like, just try to put it right here in this front shoulder, like right behind on this target, and boom, let an arrow rip. Yeah. And it was there.
You're going to be a good shot. You're going to enjoy this, and you're going to do well at it. You're going to do very well at it, and you're going to be a disciple of the trad gang.
Yeah, it's happening. It's
You're
happening.
In, bro.
It's happening. Because I mean, how many arrows did I shoot today? You think?
I would say you were probably between 75 and 100 arrows. So most people, if you haven't been shooting a lot, that's a lot of arrows. And I'm a little bit older than you, quite a bit older than you. And if I was to shoot, I shoot every day.
Right.
But my arrows a day are probably 20 or less.
Right.
You know what I mean? A day. And it's just about keeping muscles working in my eye and my mind right. If I go up to ETAR and I shoot 75 arrows, dude, I'm feeling that the next day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't need to shoot that many arrows, but it's fun to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'll have to monitor myself because it was fun. And I could see myself in the summer out there just ripping arrows, having a blast, you know.
So you're in the whole process of building and all that stuff. But so don't ever, and I'm glad the way we ended in the backyard was the right way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put my finger on the hole I wanted you to hit. You missed it the first time. The second time you hit it.
Yeah.
Or you're damn close to it. And you said, okay, that's good. I'm done.
Yep.
And because I had said, dude, you're getting close to 100 arrows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's perfect.
Yep.
You're going to fall in love with this. You're going to fall in love with shooting that bow. However, there's a lot of bad habits that you can pick up if you shoot too much.
Well,
you know
that
what I
one,
mean?
yeah, because the hole that you pointed at, I mean, I was probably like, I don't know, it was like 2 inches like up and 2 inches left of it or
something
whatever.
Like but freaking close.
But for me, like first real day shooting a trad bow, building an arrow, like legit, like trying to be effective. We'll put it that way. Because at my house, I wasn't even trying to be ineffective. I was just trying to put an arrow on the target. I didn't really care where it landed. I was more just trying to figure out, how am I going to hold this thing? How do I want to grip it?
Yeah.
What type of tiller do I want? Like all those things I was just trying to figure out, right?
Yeah.
And here was the first time I was trying to actually like, all right, I'm going to put an arrow on a spot, close to a spot, right? And as soon as that one landed close, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going to end the session on that because I've had a great day today. I learned a ton.
Have.
I shot a bunch of arrows. I feel good. I feel like I have the information I need now to work on myself. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I have that information to tweak and.
Good. I'm glad you do. I'm glad you feel that way.
No, man. Like you helped me a ton today, dude. Like it was like I didn't have it before that. Like I was kind of just waffling in the wind. Like I knew I wanted to do it, but I just really didn't have any direction. And working with you today was really beneficial because I felt like I got the direction that I need. I know what I need to do. I can tell when things are good and not good, which is important, right? And that was like the perfect shot to call it on because I was like, you know what? It was a successful last shot. We're going to end on a positive note because everything today was awesome. And I don't want to end on, man, I wish I would have had a better shot. Like I just, I try to end everything on like a positive note.
Yep. Sometimes you're going to have to cut your losses.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Like cut your losses and say, okay, I'm actually just picking up bad habits here. I need to stop today. You know what I mean? Like, it will happen.
Yeah,
it will happen. But yeah, that worked out great.
I mean, it even happens, I think it even happens in in during the course of the hunting season even. Like I think there's often times where, we get caught up in that grinder mentality of like, just go harder. And it's like, well, man, there's very few things in life that going harder makes it better. Always makes it better.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I kind of look at, I'm not a golfer, but I look at shooting a traditional bow similar to like a golfer. Like golf is one of those games that going harder makes you worse.
Okay.
Because it's a finesse game, it's a mental game. And it's not about how much harder can I do it physically.
Right.
It's like to get better at that, you got to be how much more can I be in it mentally.
Right.
Right. For me, shooting a long or a traditional bow, it feels way more mental for me than it does physical.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I could tell whenever I would lose focus, I'd have a bad shot.
Yeah.
If I was focused, shots were like, for where I'm at, they were good. Well, I'll say it that way. They weren't great. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a great archer.
Dude, you launched probably between 75 and 100 arrows today, and legitimately, it would be hard, especially at the close range arrows. It would be hard for me to say that you hadn't been shooting a bow for much longer. You know what I mean? Literally, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you were touching X's on probably. You were in the X hole, not even with a tuned arrow. I mean, probably 12 times out of those. You know what I mean?
Like that,
yeah.
So
your mind is it's figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's figuring it out, and man, I'm excited to see what you do in the woods.
I'm excited too, man, because it's on now. Like I've had a blast.
170s beware in Kansas
Oh,
this year.
Man, if that happens with the traditional bow, dude, like I told a buddy of mine, I was like, if that happens with a traditional bow, I was like, I might retire.
Yeah.
Like, that's
No
like,
way.
I was like, I don't know how it could get any better.
I want another 170 after that, and I want another one after that.
Right. But before we get to those 170s, man, we got to. There's a lot of work that go into those, right? And you and I were just talking a little bit about getting ready for hitting some scouting. We got old Archie Bunker here sleeping on his bed,
he's
chillaxing. He's chomping at the bit to get out. But I think you're headed out tomorrow to do some shed hunting, some scouting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All local stuff.
Yeah, pretty much local. I think I got to get back in touch with Greg. I don't even know if he can walk right now. But him and I were supposed to go on the 24th. There was a a big piece that we wanted to walk. I found some good stuff late in the thing, and that's out of state.
Okay.
So I don't know if he can walk right now, to be honest with you, with all the stuff that's going on with him. But next weekend, him and I are supposed to go do that.
Okay.
We haven't locked that in yet. But yeah, tomorrow is going to be some local stuff.
Right.
Yep.
Now, do you find a lot of sheds around here? Because I mean, I'm looking at like we're in Todd's basement, and there's just like freaking shed antlers everywhere in here.
Yeah, the majority of what you're seeing are New Jersey.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, I can't find sheds. Well, I'm a terrible shed hunter, like, just to begin with. Now, is Archie finding sheds?
Archie does well. He does. One of the things he's really good at is if I find them, he'll go get them.
Okay.
But he's never really picking them up on his own. But there's a lot of places I walk in reeds that are probably like 10 feet tall, and there's deer trails that go through, and then they collapse in the wintertime. They'll collapse, so they turn into real low tunnels.
Oh.
And there's been a lot of sheds with him over the last couple of years. I mean, he's 4 now.
Right.
So he's been walking 3 years.
Yeah.
This is his 3rd year of shed hunting. But there's been a lot of times where what he does well for me is when I'm get to those tunnels, and I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm not going any farther. They're too low. They're too knocked over, but I can look up there and I can see a shed. You know what I mean? I can send him in. Go get the bone.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he goes in, and I'll walk him to it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So he brings a lot of those out. I haven't had that opportunity with him yet. And man, I'm still praying and hoping for it, but I haven't had that moment where he's went out ahead of me like a lab does and go out 40 yards back and forth a couple of times and then have him just come out of the timber with a big shed in his mouth. I haven't had that opportunity yet.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
mine hasn't done that either. He found, so I saw the shed before he did. And I don't even remember how far away I was from it, but I saw it, and he was looking, because I'd put him on, like I said, find sheds, find them up. So he's looking around, and I brought him back to me. I just pointed in the direction. I was like, find a shed. And he took off, and then back and forth, and then he finally found it, and he was super stoked. I was more excited than he was, because that was the first shed he's ever found, and so he looks for them. We just don't find a lot of them, but to be fair to Rocky, his owner doesn't find a lot of sheds in general.
So you don't know how to put them in front of that bone.
Yeah.
So usually what happens with me and Arch over the last few years, I got a buddy that's got 300 private acres. So I'm usually good for on his spot. I'll bring a friend with a friend and a couple of friends, a married couple, and we'll go. I usually bring them in because they're big shed hunters too, and we're real good friends. And I'll bring them in there in later, like beginning of March, mid-March, and we'll clean up.
Right.
And usually, what I do with Arch is me and him run all my public hunting spots, and I'm scouting and I'm looking for sheds.
Right.
And we put together maybe a dozen or something sheds there, and then it's like, okay, we've been walking all of February. We're into March now. And now I'll call up my buddy DJ and say, yo, can I go in there yet? And he's like, you can always go in there. You know what I mean? Like, go.
Right.
I'm like, all right, cool. And then I'm like, I got to put my dog in front of Bone now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he's got to, not these 6 mile walks for one antler. You know what I mean? Like, we go in there and we can, on the 2 pieces that 300 splits is, some years we can find 20.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. So when you look at sheds, like, dude, you're only seeing some of the bigger ones. You know what I mean? Archie's 8, well over 70 small ones, year and a half year olds. You know what I mean? But dude, this is years of me doing this, man, and this is what I do. You know what I mean? I have years, where you get a couple dozen, 24 sheds or something like that. You know what I mean? A year, 25. I think probably my best year is probably like a couple dozen, 25 sheds or something like that,
right.
and stuff like that. But It's years of it though, man.
Yeah,
it adds up. You know what I mean? It's one of the things I enjoy. There was years I'm back to I'd rather kill them.
Right.
But there was years where I was like, I'd rather just find their antlers than kill them. There was years in my hunting shed. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I mean that you can't see it from where you're at, but there is a weave basket back there. I can show you after. We can talk about it afterwards. There's 9 years worth of sheds off of one deer.
Oh, wow.
And every one of those sheds came within 150 yards of each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
I
man.
found 2 of his sheds before I realized it was the same buck, and then I started finding his sets. He would shed the first week of January every year.
Wow.
Every year for 9 years.
That's crazy.
There's yeah. I
Is
have
that
sets,
New Jersey?
New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
That he had a honeysuckle patch that was his in the first week of January. He shed his antlers every year.
That's crazy.
That basket over there is full of his
so
sheds.
Do sheds play much of a role for you in terms of like making your hunting strategy, or do you just like to go out and find them?
I love to find them, but I'm mostly scouting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But when I was really, really into shed hunting, dude, I'd walk every public piece that I could walk that I knew there was deer at in the wintertime to find shed antlers.
Right.
It really wasn't necessarily helping me be a better deer hunter, except for the experience I was getting
Just
in the
being
woods and seeing,
sign and shit.
You always gain experience. Every time you walk in the woods, you're gaining something that's making you a better bow hunter.
So, like this year, whenever you're heading out to scout, like, you know, are you headed to some new places, or is it just?
Yeah, I usually do. I would say about 80% what I already hunt to scout it out, see
dialing it in, or see how it's changed or whatever.
Those kind of things, and shed hunt it, and then I usually try to blend about 20% of new.
Yeah. And whenever you're going back to those places that you've hunted, I'm assuming those are also just places that you've hunted historically, and maybe you haven't hunted in the past 2 years or whatever the case is, just based on how that you just may not have been able to get back there based on weather, wind, time, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So there, and the funny thing is when I can't get in a place in the wintertime, that's the year that I go in there and I find sheds that were from the year that I wasn't in there. you know what I mean?
Right,
or I did get to bow hunted or something like that. You know what I mean? I never, the wind wasn't right, conditions weren't right, or maybe I had where that specific piece gets hot at a certain time.
Right.
Maybe I was in Michigan.
Right.
Maybe I was out of state with somebody else in another state or something like that, and there was really no reason to hunt it.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a few pieces that are like that.
So I don't know. I don't think I've ever asked you this, but you know, when you're scouting and let's say it's a new area, right? Because I'm assuming the areas that you've hunted in the past and scouted in the past and stuff like that, you're really just kind of going in, seeing what has changed, what's new. Maybe you did hunt it this past year and you're like, man, I need to dial this spot in a little bit more, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
For the areas that are kind of new to you, do you really spend a lot of time this time of year breaking them down, or are you more so kind of ripping through, kind of quick getting the lay of the land and kind of seeing like, are there areas worth even spending additional time in?
Yeah, for the most part, a new piece for me, I'm going to try to go in there and find the bedding area first. I'm going to go into cover first. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Unless there's something that jumps out like a place that maybe has been clear cut, or a strange meadow. You know what I mean? That kind of sticks out in the marsh, something like that. Like, why is that? What's that feature? You know what I mean? Maybe you might want to shoot back to that and say, you know, it all starts with a mapping system on our phone.
Right.
That's where it all starts, right? Like
sure.
we don't even know that these pieces we can walk on there without our phones
anymore. Yeah, I don't know how
you
we
what
did
I mean?
it back.
So
in
it
the
all
day.
starts there. So it might start, you know, at your desk.
Yeah.
It might start at your, you know, out in the shop or whatever, and say, okay, what am I going to walk tomorrow?
Right.
You know what I mean? Kind of like I'm planning a Saturday morning hunt. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like spend some time and just study things and study the wind and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, if it's something new, for me, there's some sort of a creek, there's some sort of water that's in there, and that water is my edge. That's where the water generally is going to be where I start. You know what I mean? Like, okay, here's where I can park. What's my fastest way to get to that water? Or what's the best way to get to the water where maybe I could cover something to get to the water, but I'm going back to that water. You know what I mean? Like, water is my thing.
Your thing, yeah.
Yes.
So, like, when you do that, because, like, for me, the way I approach off-season scouting now is a little bit different than, say, it was, like, maybe 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I would maybe walk into a piece that was new to me, and I would find something that was good, say, for example, whatever it is, whether it's a terrain feature, whether it's a habitat, like, feature, whatever it is. And then I would spend a fair amount of time kind of trying to figure that area out, like, and taking it apart. But then what I realized was I'm making all that shit up. like truthfully, because I don't know. I can see what sign is there, but I don't know when the deer were there, and I don't know how they're exactly using it. Like I can tell where the sign is at, but I don't know how they're. I can make some guesses, you know. And so what I started doing was kind of like going through those, going like, yep, this is a good spot. And if it was good enough, I'll go back and throw a hunt at it, like an early season, and I might hunt it in the morning, I might hunt it in the evening, and I'll actually want to see deer in there and see what they're doing, and then I'll start to figure out how to dial it in.
Right.
Because before that, I almost felt like I was spending too much time in spots where I was just pissing in the wind. And sometimes it was right, you know, because, you know, you do this long enough, you do, you know, get it right, but without knowing
you're
everything.
Throwing hunts at it.
But I'd throw hunts at it because I felt like that's going to get me to a place of understanding more quickly. But in the off season, like it's going to waste a lot of my time because I'm working with so many unknowns. Like I don't know anything except what the sign is, and that can help you out a lot. But unless it's like a funnel or a pinch where it's like you really understand what the movement's going to be, like I felt like I was wasting a lot of time in some of those places. So I kind of changed my approach to that.
Okay. Well, for me, for wintertime, first of all, you got to think about this winter, right? Like, what are we going through right now? If we're going through a mild winter, deer didn't yard.
Nope.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So a lot of that sign is real fall sign.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If it's not fresh tracks in there right now. If you're going into a place that's all honeysuckle and there's a lot of tracks in there right now, then and we're having a cold winter and a lot of snow, and you're like, even our deer yard up.
Yeah.
They're not like UP yards where they move 50 miles.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they will yard. It's just a natural instinct for them. When it gets cold, there's certain places that we have thermal cover, and we go there and we hang out as a group. You know what I mean? There could be some mature bucks in there with some young does. You know what I mean? Like, we just get together, and they will devastate everything.
Yeah.
On winters like that. So you got to kind of take a census of what you're going through right now. Like, what's the scenario for the year?
Right.
On how, when you look at all that sign, is it winter sign? Is it yarding sign? Is it fall sign? Is it rut sign?
Right.
Is it early season sign? And then, like, for me, I'll take a look at that. And if it's white oaks, if there's white oaks in there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can tell that there's some.
That's the one.
We know.
Yeah, that's the one thing where it's like
that's happening.
Yeah, you get that. You get some sign, and that's what I'm saying. Like some areas where it's like there's enough there that you have done this long enough, and you know it's like okay, I know that there's a bedding area close by, right? Because I walked through and I saw like it's like there's a couple beds here, whatever, and then all of a sudden I'm in an oak flat. It's like okay. Like this is going to get used, right? Oh, there's a scrape over here. Yeah, okay. I don't need to spend much more time in there. Like I kind of got the picture of what
and
that is.
And you better be dropping pins on those white oaks.
Yeah,
you have to know where your white oaks are at. That if you're an early season, a September 1st season or early September season guy, you have got to know where your white oaks are at.
Yeah,
you got to know where they're at.
I know where they're all at. Unfortunately, they didn't drop like the past 2 years.
Yeah, well, but you're in for a good year then. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't do that. Yeah,
the year I found them, the year I like this one new area, the year that I found like a ton of white oaks, and I actually went through the paint because it was all new to me. So I did the painstaking process of like even during the fall, I would basically scout my way through to find a place to hunt, and I would just mark like anywhere I saw like a white oak. And that year they were like all dropping.
Right.
I marked every one of them, and I went back, last year, and I was like, man, it wasn't last year, it was the year before. I was like, man, this is gonna be great.
Yeah.
I know where all these are. I'm just gonna jump like place to place until I find a place where there's where they're dropping. And sure as shit, there wasn't any.
Yep. So and then when I find red oaks or black oaks, you know what I mean, all the red oak family, when I find those guys, and I can hunt into January, to the end of January, most of the states I hunt, you can. On bumper years, when we have a lot of red oaks, though, that's the food. No matter what else is going on, that's the food in January. I've been learning that the last few years. Like, you'd always think that they're wiped up, but they'll go back in. They'll get the stunted ones that fell in August. They'll, you know what I mean, that didn't sprout. They will go in there and eat clean acorns. Become like it's like a brassica,
right?
Food plot or something in the wintertime, in January. Until they clean them up again.
Yeah, it's I always like if I'm hunting late, and I didn't have to this year, but when I'm hunting late season, if I do find like red oaks, the one thing I always do is like if I can smash them with my fingers, then no bueno. As long as I can't smash them if I can't smash them with my fingers,
then they're edible.
Yep. You know what I mean? And that's kind of I forget who I picked that up from, but it was just but it seems such such common sense. But
if they're punky, they're
they're kind of like sour or whatever, you know what I mean? But speaking of, man, deer seasons, how was your year this year?
It was a pretty good year. Hunted 3 states. Went to the UP. Me and John White went up to the UP and hunted with my brother and my nephew.
How was the UP? I've never been.
Oh, dude, it was beautiful up there. Yeah. My brother shot a nice 8-pointer, nice dark rack. UP.
What part of the year was that?
October 1st, the
okay.
opener.
Nice.
So, yeah, we were up there. Like I said, it was the acorns were a little bit weird this year. They seemed like they dropped late up there, so there wasn't a lot of acorns on the ground. We found a few trees, and wherever we find those red oaks that we're dropping, boom, there was deer on them. My brother shot his buck opening night off of a red oak stand in a funnel. Nice. That happened to be in the same thing. But yeah, it was a little bit slow, but man, it was beautiful up there. I never ever wish that I didn't go or whatever. But the October 1st start has been pretty good to me over the years up there.
Do you always go back at the beginning of October?
That's usually it. I'd like to be up there for the opener because, dude, it's just beautiful. The leaves are bright red and bright yellow, and it's beautiful. There's salmon in the rivers if you want to go salmon fishing. The walleye are running. You know what I mean? Like
it's an outdoorsman's paradise, essentially.
Absolutely
that time of year.
Is, and it's beautiful up there. Like there's no other place I'd ever want to be the first week of October. But without being able to scout and know exactly where deer are bedding, it's really, really, really hard. It's really hard.
It's big country too.
Yeah, it's big country, and it's really, really hard to get on bucks in that first week without being able to put a lot of scouting time in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But I learn every time I learn something every time I go up there, and usually by like day 9 or whatever. This year we only really got to hunt like 5 days, but usually on that last day I learned something that. Damn it, if I would have started right here and I would have started high and I could have looked into this hole with a spotting scope.
Right.
And I would have been on this group of bucks, but I didn't find them until day 2 and I just couldn't get in front of them. Like, yeah. I had one blow at me one night on the second to the last night. You know what I mean? He got downwind of me. I didn't know exactly where they were in this bowl, but we're so close, but I'm ready. And, me and my brother we're going to do the November 6th.
Okay.
Through the 12th or 13th or something this year.
Nice.
Going to try to get a little more,
Put some things in your favor where, scouting still being important, but they're going to, deer are going to move and be a little bit more visible. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I would love to make my way up there at some point. I talked to my buddy Kevin who lives up there too, and I've talked to him about it and wanting to. Actually, I got invited this year. My buddy Brian was going up.
Where'd they go?
I forget where they went. It's Brian. That's a part of the Habitat podcast.
Okay.
Actually, I think he went up and hunted with Kevin, and it was like basically him plus one is what it was for their camp. And so Brian, hit me up and just asked me, like, hey, what are you doing? Want to go? But I'd already had my Kansas trip planned, and I couldn't really shave any days, and and stuff like that. And so it was just one of those things where I wasn't able to make the schedule work. But one of these years, man, it's like I'd love to get up there just because I want to see. Like, I know it's beautiful just from pictures. I just want to kind of go experience it, and I would love to go up that time frame that you're kind of talking about because it'd be awesome to like. Beautiful. Just to see all the colors, hunt that time of year, do some bow hunting, and look on those kinds of trips. It's like I'm even down with like taking an afternoon and just going and doing some salmon fishing, or what I mean. Like,
they're running into all the rivers and creeks. They're everywhere.
Just to experience all of it. And that would just be. Yeah. So that was one of the things I liked about the trip I did in Alaska because we were bear hunting and we were also, I think, blacktail deer hunting at the same time.
So I lived in the Upper Peninsula most of my childhood.
Yep.
Lived there, and I lived in Maine for about 3 years. And both of those places are a lot alike. Different accents.
Yes.
Totally different accents. But both of them are I've never been to Alaska. But people that have been
I've been to Maine.
People that have been in both of those areas, and then they've went to Alaska or spent a lot of time, they're like, the UP and northern Maine are mini Alaskas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you got it all here. You know what I mean? You don't have grizzlies. You know what I mean?
That's
You got moose. You can't hunt moose, but
Right.
there's a population of moose. Yeah. So yeah, UP is a special place to me, man. I mean, yeah.
All right, I got to make it one year.
Yeah,
I gotta make it happen.
Jump in the truck. It goes up there every fall, brother.
Nice, dude. What? So you're in the UP in October.
Mm-hmm.
You were in Jersey, and then you and Greg you guys went to Delaware too, right?
Yeah,
If I'm not
yeah.
mistaken.
So we usually do the velvet part.
Yeah.
The September 1st thing. It gets harder. It gets harder every year.
That's what he was saying. Like
Yeah.
whenever he and I were talking about, he just said this year was just a fair amount of people that were being run into and stuff like that.
We him and I tried to set the first 3 or 4 days of the season up every year to hunt down there, or maybe eventually maybe someplace else. You know what I mean? But yeah, so we tried to do that. So that's a locked in. Those are basically locked in dates. You know what I mean, for the opener and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, I go down when I can, or if I'm going down and I know a week ahead of time, like I'm going down Saturday and Sunday. The weather looks good.
Right.
Moon is right. Everything is right. You know what I mean? I'll shoot him a text and say, yo, I'm going down. I'm getting to camp. You coming down?
Right.
And he's like, I can or I can't. You know what I mean? And,
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sporadic after that. And we also have Steve and, like Lane Hausner. He showed up, I think it was January or December. He came down.
Right.
You know what I mean? From In the Presence.
Yeah.
So
how was the hunt though? Was it good?
Good. I mean, we're on deer all the time. You know what I mean? Like, Greg has told a story a couple of different places about the experience. We went down like October 27, 28, 29, somewhere in that time frame, right around Halloween. He had he had a really, really close, really nice encounter on a scrape. Yeah, pretty good. I mean, I seen some rutting, a lot of rutting activity with smaller bucks. I never put a big buck. I never seen a big buck at all this year down there, but they're there.
In years past, like how has it been in years past? Like, I'm just not sure. Like, it's always something that's interesting me because I'd love to do a velvet hunt, without going to like the Dakotas, traveling across the country to do it. I mean, I guess you could go to Tennessee and there's Kentucky. Kentucky gets a lot of pressure now. Like I got plenty of friends that go there, and it just seems like every year it's more and more people that are running into. But Delaware would be kind of cool because it's not far from where I live. Obviously I live like not far.
Like
from
I said,
you.
it's a really, really hot hunt. You know what I mean? You got to have your core lightweight hoodie,
right? Your
you know
thermocell rolling.
Yeah, your thermocell. Yeah, you gotta be thinking about that. A lot of water. You got to make sure you got a lot of water. But yeah,
are the bucks good there though? I mean, could you find some good?
Yeah, I'm not gonna necessarily tell you what kind of class deer are down there because your podcast pretty big and relatively local, so I'll get killed by other people. But yeah, there's some.
The hunting's good.
Yeah,
hunting can be good.
Hunting can be good down there.
Yeah.
But
so what about so you killed a buck in Jersey right this year? So what was the deal on that one?
So that buck was Thanksgiving morning. So it was in an area
I love Thanksgiving morning, dude. That's one of my favorite times to hunt.
I'm getting more where my buddy Steve is a Kansas guy, and he goes out there and he doesn't even go to Kansas until the 20th. You know what I mean? Like he's like, all these guys think that they're in Ohio and they go up there the first week of November and they're mentally challenged by doing that. Like you're being locked in by a totally different deer from the from the Midwest. That's not the best time to kill a big stud out there. Thanksgiving time is the best time.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, the last few years, and I was talking to my brother about this last night. I'm like, I think we've over the years we've been trained by 3.5-year-olds and younger that the first week of November is awesome because they're running around, but we don't ever really see the real tanks.
Yep.
But you see the real tanks in Thanksgiving.
Yep.
You'll run that week of Thanksgiving. And I've always had a process there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Most of the time I've already shot a 3-year-old.
Right.
And I'm tagged out and I don't get to hunt. But
right.
But yeah, so let's not get it twisted. The buck I shot was probably a 2 or 3 year old deer this year. It wasn't one of those monsters.
Right.
But it was in an area that I had been monitoring. It's a doe bedding area, and I monitor it most of the fall. And there never really was, until about a week before that, never really was any bucks that started moving in on these does. You know what I mean? I keep real good track of the trails in there.
Right.
In the tracks. And most of the time, I've seen some even small, some 1.5 and 2 year olds in there, farther in, and I monitor the trail that I use for tracks crossing it and whatnot. And the week before, I noticed where I had missed a really big 6-pointer that I showed you in the shop.
Yep.
Anyway, that I had missed that deer the year before on a creek crossing right there, and there was a bigger buck that had started crossing right there. So I went in there. I had the morning off for Thanksgiving morning, and I went in there, and I was only set up for maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes or something like that.
Right.
Boom, he came through and gave me a 4-yard shot. Heard him in the water. It's I'm sitting in there in my saddle, like sitting there away from the tree, twisted on because I run a big saddle, big platform, and I was hunting out of the saddle and turned around in the tree like I was in a tree stand, and out of my peripheral vision on the other side of the bank of the creek, I seen this buck coming through, and I looked over and I was like, oh, yep, that's a shooter for me right now. This late in the year, that is a shooter. And he come down. I seen him. He was coming perpendicular to the creek, and then I seen him break to start coming down, and I was like, oh. I reached up, grabbed my bow, and while I was getting my feet set and getting my fingers on the string and getting everything set, you know what I mean? I knew where he was coming because I was on the trail that he was coming. He came. I could hear him in the water, and I was like, oh. For me, Clint, being a water guy, that is absolutely it. I could point you to every deer that I heard their feet in water that I've got other racks, and
oh wow,
you know what I mean.
That's
like
awesome.
I love that. There's nothing better for me than that. And I could hear him in the water, and I can't look at him yet because I'm getting everything set, but I can hear him, and then boom, he does a little shake, and he starts coming up the hill next to me, and I look down, and he's right below me. I'm looking through my platform and my feet at him, and he starts coming up the hill. And he got to about 4 yards from my stand, and I stuck it right in his liver and quartered right up into the good stuff, man. And he crashed back through, and when he came back down off this bank, crashed across the creek, and he went up the other bank, there was blood flowing, spraying the whole way. And I was like, oh, yes.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like, that is a Thanksgiving morning. I love that. Yeah, I love that.
That's was that water access too? Like, did you have to kayak
No. That was all dry land.
Okay.
All dry land.
So out of these bucks, so we're sitting in Todd's basement here, and he's got a bunch of mounts and racks here. Which ones were water that we're looking at?
That guy came out of a swamp. He was actually, I could hear his feet in water, but it was it was in Maine. So it was like what do you want?
He's a hammer too. That's a big Maine buck too, man.
Yeah.
I mean, his neck is huge, but for Maine, like the rack is big.
He was. He's got 3.5 inches broke off that main beam, and he's 159 and 6/8 with that, and he was 217 dressed. So on November 11th.
How big was his neck, dude? Look, that neck is just.
The form is a full size form. It's 26.5 behind the ears. Yeah.
Yeah. It's big. Damn.
Yep.
What about
It's a mountain buck from Connecticut.
Mountain buck from Connecticut. Yep. Nice. Yeah, that's a big one too. That's a big old mainframe 8 there. Like,
152.
That's a huge 8, man.
Net.
That's crazy.
Yep.
That's bananas.
Yep. That buck was not in water, but it was water access. So he got a canoe ride.
Nice. Those are always fun, dude. I love those.
That buck, the only reason why he's there is a friend I can tell you every rack, everything you see in here, there's only one deer in my house that was ever somebody else. I sat in their tree stand because they said go over and sit. My son, I was filming hunts at the time, and I have a very good friend that helped me get into it, and we were filming for a group of an outdoor group, and he had some private land, and he was trying to film Tony, my oldest son, shoot a deer with a bow. So I said, that's fine, dude. Yeah, if you'd like to, like I'll bring him by, drop him off, and then I'll go over to some state land that I know up the road. And he's like, no, just come. You can sit in one of my tree stands. And I was like, that feels dirty to me, man. I'm sorry, I can't do it. And he's like, no, just come on. Right. He's like, because that way you're right here. If you're when he shoots tonight, and he thought he was gonna, when he shoots tonight,
you'll be here.
You'll be right here, and you can just come across the field, and it'll be great. We can run 2 cameras on the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I can get you and him tracking it, and you know what I mean? It was gonna be a good filming thing. I went in there, and I hadn't shot a self-filmed deer at the time.
Right.
And I'm in his stand, and next thing you know, that deer, man, it kind of tricked me. It was back in a bedding area. It came out into this little feeder creek, and the feeder creek had algae, a lot of algae and moss and stuff in it. And that deer sat there and ate moss for like 20 minutes before it came out. And then it started coming out, and I was like, it tricked me. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And I was like, I don't know. Yep. All right. Yep. I've never filmed one on self-filming, and you know what I mean? Like, so I had the camera. I got them all on film.
Nice.
All on film, and the
That's
recovery
awesome.
on film and everything. And here, I probably shot one of his up-and-comers.
What's that one?
That one there was water. That
Water?
was, I'm not going to tell you exactly where it came from, but it's relatively local. Relatively local.
Local water. Yeah, gotcha.
Yep.
And what about this one here?
That one here is a wildlife management area in South Jersey.
Okay, nice.
Yep, that was a trad bow that was my first buck out of a saddle.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, nice.
So,
Velvet here behind me.
Yep, Delaware.
Okay, nice.
Yep, Thanksgiving morning, South Jersey.
That was a Thanksgiving morning buck too?
That was a Thanksgiving morning buck as well.
Wow,
yep.
What year was that?
I want to say 9.
9? Yeah. Nice. And then
there's
other racks around here and stuff like that. There's a bunch more out in the shop.
Out in the shop is all the ones that don't get mounted, but yeah.
Nice, man.
Yeah. So the reason that he's there is because, first of all, it's only private land buck I ever shot, and it was self-filmed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The self-filming being my first self-filmed buck.
Dude, that's awesome.
It's like 2011 or something like that.
Yeah.
There's some,
I still can't get over how big like that Maine buck is and that Connecticut mountain buck. Like that's because people don't think of Connecticut having big deer, and that's, I mean, as an 8-point, that is a giant.
It's 152.
I mean, anything an 8-point over 130 is a big 8-point.
232 dressed, a mountain buck.
Yeah. And his neck is huge too.
Yeah.
He's all swole up.
Yep.
Damn. Well, awesome, man. I don't want to take up any more of your time, dude. We've been here all day, tuning arrows, shooting bows, chopping it up.
It was a great
dude.
day, dude.
It was an awesome day, brother. I appreciate you having me down.
I appreciate you coming over, like, and for you to show the interest in something new. And I can't wait to see you kill an awesome buck this year, because you're on bucks. You're doing it now.
Yeah,
they're starting to flow, bro.
The faucet has been opened.
Yes.
It seems
they're starting to flow.
But before I get out of here, man, let people know where they can follow along with you and check out things that you have going on.
Yeah, so John White and I have the Seek Wilderness podcast. There's a lot of things on Spotify and all the different platforms for podcasts. You can see some of that. Like I said, and we talked about earlier, we're taking a little break right now, but I think I told you off air, like, we've never been as consistent as some of you top-notch guys. You know what I mean? Like, we've had some good runs and that kind of stuff, but we've never been that consistent.
Right.
It's hard to put things together, man. It really is.
Well, that, and you do a lot of stuff on Instagram now too, especially like if you're someone who's interested in trad and learning more about tuning arrows and stuff like that. I started watching like the stories you've been doing. One, because I knew we were going to hang out, and two, because I'm just interested in it to learn about it. And you do a good job of breaking down like your process, and you're just basically bringing people along with how you set up your stuff for like the postseason, so you're shooting or just building your hunting arrows and stuff like that, and get dialed in, and it's super helpful. So if people are out there listening,
so real quick on that. So this time of year, the beginning of the year, to me, it's like the last few years is one of the times where I started at the beginning of the year. I finished out a bow season, and I said, next year I'm going trad.
Right.
So I utilized this time of year to start building a new bow. That was my time. And for me, if anybody's ever going to make the switch, now is the time. So for me, it's always been like January, February, I'm scouting and shed hunting and all that kind of stuff. But in the long run, I'm trying to brainwash people into coming over to trad and giving them the push that they need. You know what I mean?
Right,
to try it. Just try it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like watch that mystical flight of the arrow. Watch that arrow fly again.
Yeah.
Dude, you pull out a compound bow, you just know when you hit.
Yeah.
You don't get to see the flight. You know what I mean? That's the way that it is nowadays. You know what I mean? Like get out there, enjoy the great outdoors, go seek wilderness, go do epic stuff, and watch your arrow kill stuff, man. That's what it's all about. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked to try it this year and throw it into the arsenal. And you'll be one of the first people I text whenever it comes to fruition. But
good.
But thanks again, buddy. I appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there as well. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, and Genesee Beer. And until next time, we'll see y'all.